Hello everyone. This is Khaled Sulaiman from ERP Talks. We are very, very happy having Mike Taylor with us. Mike, also known as Battleship Cobra.
Thank you very much, Khaled. I'm happy to be here. I feel like computers are easy and people are difficult. So the hardest thing to do beginner implementations, you focus so much on your system, like what you are building for, what you think would be the best in isolation of when you're testing. And I think when you start to get a little better, you really have to do a bit of change management. I don't know if you ever seen Gordon Ramsay's, like, what is it called? Kitchen Nightmares, where he kind of goes in and he has to, like, he comes in and, like, brings the departments together, starts, like that. As weird as it sounds, like, I want to go in and I want to bring the organization together, because a lot of smaller businesses, it's like the warehouse is like they have their own spreadsheet, and then finance is working in QuickBooks. They don't talk. Sales, they do whatever the heck they do, and stuff's showing up. So I feel like the hardest part is to foster and kind of adjudicate the communication, like enable the communication cross department, so that you can integrate all these processes into one robust process that they can use and grow on, that will be more efficient. And a lot of the times, like, people don't want to change, so I have to consider. And I think my biggest failures, like earlier in my career, were like me trying to make my system perfect so that it would work technically. But I don't know where I heard about it, but the word compliance, I heard the word compliance somewhere. And somebody was basically saying, if they don't use it, it doesn't matter at all how good the system is. It doesn't matter how many UDFs you have and what kind of technical features you have. If they don't want to use it, it makes no difference. So having and maintaining a positive rapport with the team of people you're working with, and fostering cross-departmental communication and enabling change management. There's always going to be some pain and some people won't want to do it, but demonstrating enough value for the reason that you need to buy into using the system, why it will help, and then making a system that is reasonable enough in the requirements that anybody would say, hey, this isn't too bad, and this provides me more value back than I'm putting into it. And I think that's the real challenge of an implementation. It's not getting, it's not writing the best queries. It's bringing people together.
Eric, welcome to our podcast. We are thrilled to have you join us, and we are so grateful that you accepted our invitation.
Well, thank you, Khaled. Very good to meet you again and to be part of the podcast. So thank you for inviting me.
I know that digital transformation and the ERP and the software systems, it's a challenging. It's not that easy. So tell us more about those challenges.
That's a good question. And by the way, just to add to something you said, I didn't mention this in your last question, but I started my career doing just SAP projects. So I was doing R3. That's how long ago it was. It was SAP R3, and I was certified in SAP right out of business school. So I was doing SAP for the first 2 years was all SAP work. So I know the product really well. I've obviously done a lot of ECC and now S4 HANA and a little bit of Business One, but a lot of S4 HANA type of projects as well. But I think that the hardest part with these sorts of projects is that first, I think one of the biggest things is organizations have unrealistic expectations of what the project is going to entail. So they might get an overly optimistic proposal from a software vendor, or they might get a proposal from a vendor that doesn't have accurate assumptions around, how fast the client can move. So they end up with these unrealistic expectations early on, and that oftentimes leads to problems later on where there's downside risk and that sort of thing, or bad decisions get made. The other thing is the other big problem I think organizations have has nothing to do with the technology. It has to do with internal misalignment. So they don't have a clear vision of what they're trying to accomplish with, say, an SAP S4HANA implementation. Product's great, right? S4HANA can do a lot of good stuff. It's a very powerful tool. But if you don't know what you want to do with it, if you don't have a clear vision of what it is you're trying to accomplish, and also what you want to be as an organization. What are you trying to be when you grow up? That's the stuff that takes time. It slows down the project. It adds to the risk of the project. But so many organizations will just try to power through that or sort of ignore that and just go implement S4HANA, for example, without figuring out what is it we want to be, what do we want our future state to look like. And of course, S4HANA, the functionality or any ERP system is going to provide an input to help you define what you could be in the future. But if you don't really know, like, how are we going to consolidate these functions, or are we going to move to a standard operating model or more of a flexible, decentralized model? You have to make these fundamental decisions and clarify that stuff before you start implementing technology, or else it doesn't matter how well you manage the project, you're just going to run into trouble. So I'd say the internal misalignment and then the unrealistic expectations are probably the two biggest things. And then the third one I'd add, which is sort of related to the second one, is organizational change management. Just making sure that you are able to navigate the human resistance that inevitably happens during a project like this.
Richard, with your extensive SAP Business One knowledge and cloud technology experience in many regions, it's fantastic to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me along, and hopefully I can deliver some value for all of your watchers and listeners.
Why do you prefer SAP Business One? What makes you love SAP Business One like that? I feel that.
Well, first of all, I know the product inside out, upside down. You know, I've been doing it for so long, since 2003, and I know all of the, well, I don't know all of the people, that's an overstatement, but I know so many of the people in the community. I know so many of the people at SAP who are behind the product. I've seen the product, when it's implemented correctly, do the most amazing things for the businesses that have bought the software. And there is so much capability that the product has, and there are so many things you can do with the product, that I think we've only just scratched the surface, even before we get into the whole topic of, you know, is there a new generation of SAP Business One coming? With the product that exists today, if you're on version 10 and you're on at least feature pack, I don't know, 2111, there is so much technology there that you can utilize for digital transformation. All the things that all the consultants talk about that are important, and all the things that they talk about that are important to helping a business grow and leverage technology, you can do all of that in SAP Business One, with the service layer, the web client, the API gateway, the fact that it runs on HANA, and the fact that it also runs on SQL, and you can do a lot of these things on both platforms. The fact that you can integrate it with a whole range of other web technologies, not just SAP's business technology platform, but also, you know, Microsoft's Power platform. You know, you can do all of these things. Those integrations in Business One are available, and they're standards-based integrations. So you can do so much. You just have to be willing to look at it and be able to identify what the problem is you're trying to solve. And there's a pretty good chance you can solve it with Business One. So that's why I'm focusing on Business One. And there is the future is bright for Business One. There have been so many hints and innuendos of people saying, oh, Business One is finished, it's this, it's that. That is definitely not the case. I mean, the product has 80,000 customers around the world. So many people don't even know that about Business One, and they act like it doesn't exist. There are more Business One customers than there are using Dynamics Business Central. I think there's more Business One customers than there are people using NetSuite, and so on and so forth. Not that it's a competition to see, you know, who's got the most customers, but it's an indication of the product that the customers want to buy it, and importantly, they want to stay with it. Business One has a phenomenal renewal rate on annual maintenance. Yeah. Customers just keep renewing every year. SAP's challenge is to make sure that they continue to deliver innovations, which I think they're doing, and continue to invest in the product, and which I know they're doing, and that they continue to deliver more than just bug fixes.
Today we are super excited because we have the amazing Professor Markley with us. Professor Markley is a big name in the ERP world. It's going to be a great chat that you won't want to miss. There's a lot of companies that don't have ERP. And as a business owner, people come and say, hey, you're not using ERP, you should use ERP. And when we come to the pricing, it's a big budget.
Yep.
So most of them say, what is the return of investment? I will pay all of that money and what I will get. I know that it's worth to have ERP, but in your opinion, what to say to those people who are saying that what is the return of investment if I pay all of that money?
And it's tough with ERP because some of it's soft and hard to quantify, hard to measure, those return on investments. I mean, I think number one, you've got what I teach again, and I teach this in my MIS classes. A big return on investment for ERP is having integrated financials. That's so huge. When you do set up the GL account determination in Business One, you know that all your transactions against inventory, all your transactions against your warehouses, etc., are going to be recorded properly in your chart of accounts. You're not going to have to go in and make manual journal entries. So financial information, integrated customer information, having that integrated view of your shipping to your customers, your billing to your customers, your customer service, etc. HR often having more integrated, more control over your HR, again, based on some of the add-ons you may bring in. I think those huge, maybe initially not necessarily cost savings, but eventually can lead to big cost savings. And just by having that integrated view, things are going to be more accurate. Great example that we often talk about. I ship a product to a customer. If I don't have an ERP, I may miss preparing that bill. You do that a couple times a year, you could be short thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in billings that you would have caught if you had that integrated financial, integrated inventory, integrated customer system. So, I've had that question from business owners before. And, there are some very simple businesses where a QuickBooks is the perfect solution for them. But typically, once that business starts to get into multiple locations, more complex business processes, there's a very quick return on investment on implementing an ERP system.
Welcome, Tyler, to ERP Talks podcast. And we are very happy that we have you in our show. Regarding the sales, so I want to know the typical day in life of ERP sales professional. So so every day you go to Salary Tech office. What are you doing? What is the stuff that you are doing every day?
So what am I doing? Every day is an adventure, and it's a journey working with Tech for sure. So not every day in sales. I would never say that every day is very similar. So usually, if I were to lay out an average day at Tech, I would usually start in the morning by checking all the emails that I got overnight, and then sometimes clients send things like late at night during the week, like U.S. clients. So I usually start my day off and I look at all the emails I have. I usually plan a to-do list for that day of all the things I know I need to get done, the most important tasks that need to get done regarding sales that day. I start my to-do list and then I respond to the emails. I tackle the most urgent things. So if I owe a prospect a sales quotation or like a ballpark sales quotation about how much it would be to implement SAP with the modules that they need, how much our easy starter methodology would be for the implementation of SAP, if they need any add-ons, if they need any additional services, extended support. So I usually tackle all those like very urgent sales tasks first. So any sales quotations that I owe, any proposals that I owe, I need to make sure that's done because I don't want to make sure that is happening and clients are expecting information from me that I'm not giving. So all sales comes first. That's like a known thing in the industry. You really need to show our clients that they matter, that they're important, and that we value them, and that we will give them the best possible sales experience ever, right? Because that's one thing that we can control. We can control the experience that our clients get with working with us. As like technically the ambassador of a company, I'm responsible for getting everything to our clients and our prospects in a very speedy way. So to circle back to your question, I would say I get all of these sales tasks done immediately. I update our customer relationship management tool that we use. We actually use SAP Business One for our CRM. So I'm in it every single day, right? So I'm updating client information. I'm entering any new prospects that I might have met in past sales conventions. Then I see any clients that I should be following up on regarding certain topics. I'm updating that into SAP. And then one important thing that I did learn in sales, which is extremely, extremely vital for this industry, is that you have to prospect every day. And do you want to prospect every day? No. But what I mean by prospecting is that you need to every single day, a little bit, you need to be scouting prospects. So for Solaritech, our niche, food companies, food manufacturing companies, food distribution companies. I need to be on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I need to be on LinkedIn. I need to be on Google, looking at companies in the area. I need to be calling. I need to be picking up the phone. I need to be calling clients or prospects, cold calling. I need to be sending emails. I need to be sending LinkedIn messaging to honestly a few prospects every single day, so that no quarter gets left below quota for me. So I need to make sure that I am doing a little bit every single day to make sure that I have a full pipeline of prospects. I never want to be stuck with nothing to do or stuck with no pipeline or no prospects in line. I always want to at least make sure that I have about 10 prospects, 10 sales qualified leads that I'm working with. So for that to happen, I need to be every single day. I need to be trying a little bit more in prospecting, meeting new people, following
10,
up.
10, 10 per quarter or 10 per month?
Well, no, I would say at every single given day, I need to have at least 10 sales qualified leads. Yeah. Well,
daily.
not new to 10. I just need 10 at any given time. So I'm sure there's days that they continue being the same 10, but as long as I have 10, that's good. But I also need to be working every day on prospecting to make sure I keep that 10 average.
So it's a kind of a KPI that is like you agreed with your manager or something about it, or it's something that you are doing your own?
Myself? Yeah, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I don't know if you can tell. I put a lot of pressure on myself. That was not even anything that Claudia, made a restriction on me or a KPI. That was something that I've taught myself just from reading sales books and marketing books and business development books that I need to have in the ERP industry. I need to have at least 10 sales qualified leads. So I hold myself to that, right? Claudia is very trusting. She counts on me. I have a lot of freedom with sales at Solaritech, which is amazing, which is perfect. But for that to happen, I have a lot of responsibility. I'm on my nights, I'm reading books, studying other people in the ERP sales, right, or large software sales, right? I'm learning what they do, the sales methodologies that they use, so I can bring that into developing my own leads and providing the most value to our prospects. So we don't only want to provide value to our clients that have already bought with us. We provide value to anybody that comes to us. Anybody.
Hi, Haley. Welcome to ERP Podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome to ERP Talks Podcast. I'm sorry for that.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So marketing in the ERP is it challenging? It's tough. And many people that I know and I heard from, they feel like they have a lot of issues to generate leads and do the marketing stuff for the ERP, because ERP marketing is not easy job. It's not easy. So what is your tactics? What is your strategy to market for your company ERP solution?
So I think in order to explain what that playbook looks like, we need to understand the market and the landscape first. So I'm going to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and maybe share a perspective that other people might not have realized. We hear in the marketing space that there are two key types of marketing: B2C, so business to consumer, and B2B, business to business. And of course, there's B2B SaaS, which is business to software as a service.
Okay.
So those are kind of the three marketing bubbles, topics that you can go online and learn about, or books you can read, podcasts that you can listen to. VAR marketing and specifically ERP VAR marketing, is very niched in itself because we're not business to consumer. We are business to business, but we're not selling a product that is ours. Then we're selling somebody else's software. So you have to be a little bit more creative in how you choose to do your marketing, because there isn't necessarily just one path that you can follow that will always be correct. So with being an ERP vendor, they want to promote their product. So any ERP vendor that you work with is going to always give you information and collateral about how you can be an amplifier for their software. Where you need to massage that message is, how are you an expert in their software? And that tends to be the part that is missing. Most resellers are amplifying just the product and not necessarily who they are or what makes them unique or different. And you might think about it in such a way that there are a lot of different resellers across all ERP channels that are all selling the exact same thing. We're all selling the best of breed, true cloud, the one financial software that you have to have in your business. But is that really what you're selling? And that's a question that I'm going to get everybody to think about as they watch this. Is that what you're selling? Because I'm pretty sure it's not. And we'll get to that answer later on as we go.
Hi, Carl. It's very, very great honor for me to have you in ERP Talks podcast.
Well, you're too kind. I've been waiting for a number of months to do this because I was going through some changes myself, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you today for sure.
What is the common mistakes that you can see people are doing while they are implementing an ERP solution that they should avoid or take care of?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that I always I've written about and I've talked about is that trying to make the new system do it the way the old one did. And this is really hard when somebody has an old, highly customized system.
Yeah.
My mind tells me, I never said this out loud to a customer, if that one was so good, you should have stuck with it. So I think you really have to remind yourself, this is not the old system. I need to adapt to the way the new one does the best I can.
Yeah.
And it's really a matter of the new system coming towards you and you coming towards it, somewhere in the middle. But you are going to have to change, right? So if you're not ready to change, you're not ready for a new ERP system, because they're not identical to one another. They had the same end result, but the path to get to that result is going to be different. And it has a limited amount of modifications that can be done to it. It's not unlimited in that sense. So I think that's one of them. Another one is they don't put the right people on the job, right? And I'm not talking about the consulting company. I'm talking about internal people. Oftentimes they, like I've been given, an owner's nephew, and it's like, no, you need a whole team. They need to be strategically chosen for their knowledge of the business and their technical capabilities and the job and the role they fulfill. And my minimum personally is 4, right? Because there's a lot of work to be done that's internal work. And if it's only one person, when the whole company goes live, you're only going to have one person that everybody's going to be asking for help from. That's not enough. So I like to see a team of at least 4 people internally at the customer's location to really be in all the meetings, understand what we're doing, help. Because if only one person, if you're relying on them to know the whole company and everybody's processes, I guarantee you they don't. And they just don't have a full reflection on what everybody does all the time. So you need more voices in the room, right, when these things are being designed and put together. So I talk about the team that's required to make it a successful experience. It has to have involvement and ownership from the uppermost people in the company. Can't have an absent CEO that on go live flies into the room and says, but it doesn't do these 7 things, right? Who wasn't interested until we get to the end to show up and tell us those are his requirements, right?
Yeah.
So they've got to be involved up front. And you want their support because you want that person to be the champion of this new system that's going in, and to basically tell their employees, we're doing this, I'm doing this, you need to come along with me, right? This is our journey, this is our success, right? We're going to make it work, right? It's really important to have that kind of leadership along the way. And I have this phrase that I picked up from Star Trek that I like to use. In the early credits in a Star Trek roll-up, it always talked about, to boldly go, right, where no one else has ever gone, blah, blah, blah. And I like that phrase, boldly go, right? So if you're going to change ERP systems, it takes some courage, right? Because there's a lot of things that can happen, but you have to boldly go, right? It's just like when I get in my car every day, the car does not timidly start. It fires up, right? And that's the way it's got to be with, switching ERP systems or putting one in for the first time. If you are, you just have to jump in, right? And it's get going, right? Just go boldly, right? That's for sure. Those are some of the reasons that I see things fails, because people think it's going to be easier than it is. They don't invest in it enough. They don't put the right people on it. They don't have the right leadership. The consulting companies, all of them have good ones and bad ones. And the difference for me is a lot of times the customer that you're working with, right, and how they approach it. So there's a lot of coaching, if you will, that needs to go into that experience of working with the business and encouraging them. If you start getting into meetings and there's only 2 people involved and they're impacting the lives of 50, that's not enough people, right? To be sure you've got the information you need.
Hi, Kyler. We are so glad having you in ERP Talks.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Khaled. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's talk marketing.
And yay, my favorite.
You mentioned Mountain Dew. You mentioned Amazon, I believe.
Yeah.
You mentioned big names in the marketing.
Yeah.
So marketing in the ERP industry is not easy. We are selling the same ERP, even if it is SAP, Infor, Acumatica. It's the same program, the same software. But how people feel like I will be different than Kyler, how Kyler will be different than like anybody else. So what do you think about that? The ERP
Yeah,
market?
I mean, I completely understand that, because there is a lot of crossover when it comes to services provided as well. So I think there's lots of marketplaces in business that are highly competitive, and ERP happens to be one of them. Although I would challenge that approach just a little bit, in the fact that I think there's a lot of very niche areas in ERP when it comes to system specific advisory, system implementers, data migration. So there's a lot of community support in those strategic partnerships. So I do see it like that. I think when it comes to looking at ERP, a lot of times what happens is our ERP advisory team gets trapped in traditional marketing. When we look at things like SEO, when we look at paid ads, traffic drivers, acquisition spaces, and they really want to have that more transactional based business, where we're looking at those are built for more e-commerce business. So we have a user that's coming to a website to purchase a watch, right? That's not our business model. We have a full relationship with our customers for years on end, that we need to be able to establish that trust prior to the sale. Because if I'm picking between, Bert and Ernie to be my advisors, a lot of times they have the same competencies, they're selling the same thing, but Bert may have the ability in which they created trust in the marketplace through things like an influencer profile or being involved in the conversation. And Ernie might be awesome, but at the same time, I don't see that same trust and authenticity that I see for Bert. So I'm going to go with Bert because of that relationship. So I think the biggest piece of understanding that is, again, looking at your current state. What do you have in your overall data that you can excavate to give you insights? Is there a certain niche market that you've fallen in that you want to do some targeting in that area? Or is there some value that you can bring and get those conversions through that? The main thing that I see when I go in and assess a business is the lack of lead generation assets. So for us, again, we're creating that relationship. We don't want someone to just visit our website and then go away, right? We want to get them into our CRM so that we're able to continue to provide them with content in our CRM and on social media so that they're continuing to grow this relationship. Bert's becoming that trusted advisor, and Ernie's just hoping that his phone rings. And hopes and dreams don't sell engagements, right? Unfortunately. So I think the biggest thing is creating those lead generation pathways through your front end business processes so that you can continue to build up your contact database. Because a lot of times we're a year out from people buying what that we need them to buy. They're just in this kind of information garnering stage, and we need them to understand that ZConsulto is the trusted advisor in that information stage. So for a couple of months, we're giving them marketing emails. We're posting on social media. They're following us there. They're creating a passive relationship with our business and our brand to be able to see us as the trusted advisor. So that's the biggest thing that I see is utilizing those traditional marketing tactics that are built again for more of an e-commerce brand, as opposed to really focusing on how do I get this contact into my CRM so that I can create an ongoing relationship with them.
Hi, Armando. It's a pleasure having you in ERP Talks.
Khaled, thank you for having me, man.
So, as a CEO for an ERP company, in your opinion, what is the biggest challenges that you face in the ERP arena? Is it like more technical, like in the implementation, or
Yeah.
after the implementation, or the effort it takes before like closing a deal, like the sales and marketing?
I think it's all of the above. I think there are challenges across the entire life cycle of an ERP. I sometimes joke to people that people think of an ERP like a four-letter word. Pick your favorite four-letter word, right? And some of that comes from bad experiences, like what I had when I told you I avoided SAP like the plague when I was at ExxonMobil because it just seemed cumbersome. It seems like this clunky system. But I think in general, where we're at today in the market, if we talk about lead generation, for example, there's a lot of competition. There's also a lot of information. And it's really hard to find people where they're at today. And actually, you see this when in your marketing efforts that to find somebody that is ready to implement an ARP, that has the budget, that has the staff, particularly in mid-market and small businesses, it's a really tough thing to do, especially when you have so much competition. So trying to find those people is really hard.
Yeah.
Convincing them that you're good is also very hard. And then keeping them and keeping them happy throughout a process that sometimes they feel like they're either forced to do or they didn't really understand what it would take to be successful in implementing an ERP can be challenging. So, for us, I think lead generation is always top of mind. We haven't cracked the code. I haven't spoken to someone that has told me, yeah, I know exactly how to generate leads. But I will say that what I'm finding more and more is that meeting customers where they're at by speaking their language and understanding their business first and then the software second, by learning verticals and micro verticals really, really well, so you can speak to them in their terms, has been advantageous. And I think that'll translate well to marketing efforts. But, we're still figuring out, what micro verticals we want to go after. We know where we have some expertise, but we also want to make sure that we're going at them in a methodical and thoughtful way.
You mentioned something so important, that understand what we are delivering to them. Some people don't, even if the decision makers understand what they are buying from us, but the people in the operation, like in the sales, in the purchasing, in the warehouse, they don't understand the value that we are giving to them. So they start resisting and resisting, and make it harder for us to implement the solution. But uh, I agree with you 100% on that.
Well, it goes
So,
back to human nature, right? Humans
yeah,
don't like change.
exactly.
There are so many times where it's really funny. I actually I was with one of our sales folks, and we were meeting with a client, and there's always that one person in the room that doesn't want to be there,
I
but
know
is
him.
forced to be there, and it was so funny that over time you just saw the difference in her face, right?
Hmm.
Where she's like, "Oh, okay, now I see things." So but people's time and is so limited. There's so much information out there that you really have to make a really impactful um, value proposition. But the only way to do that is to uncover, okay, what matters to you, right? It's not always price. It's not functionality. Because right now, if you really look at all the big ERPs, they all pretty much can do the same. Maybe there's some minor changes here and there, but
Yeah.
what is it that is really going to get you over the edge? Are we building enough trust with you? And I think what I've found is that let me meet you where you're at. What are your pain points? And let me make sure that I can either tell you I can know how to solve them, or we've solved them before, or we're going to solve them together because we have the track record of doing that. And that's a hard thing to do in 5 minutes, in a demo, in a discovery, right? I don't know if you know this, but kind of moving on to the next part. Let's say you do get a lead. How painful is the sales process for a software? It's excruciating. You got to do a band qualification, and then a discovery, and then demos, and then more demos, and then you go back, and then you finally talk about price, and then by then everybody's exhausted and they just want to move on, right? I think we need to do a better job of trying to make that experience better for both the VARs and the prospects. Make the buying experience better. Now, we'll never be Amazon, right? Never be like salesless, right? But how can we provide them with resources ahead of time that they can watch on their time, that answers their questions, that they could say, hey, I'm looking for this solution. Here's a 5-minute video. It's not even 5 minutes. Here's a 20-second snippet of that. I think we could do a better job as an ecosystem and as providers of doing that. I don't know what you see.
Hi, Josh, to ERP Talks podcast, and welcome to you. I'm very happy that we finally made it.
Yeah, it's been a couple months we've been talking about this. Yeah, so thanks for having me.
Yeah, you've been busy with Synth 7, so good luck with Synth 7, and good for them that they have you.
Thanks.
So when you moved to Acumatica, you started building also something from scratch, or they have something and you started like upgrading it?
So Acumatica didn't have anything. At that time, there was a partner who had built an integration between Magento and Acumatica. And they essentially proved the concept, that there was a market out there that wanted to buy an e-commerce system integrated with an ERP. But they were working with Magento, and Magento was another open source application. And what they and the other partners were finding is that ERP people are not e-commerce people. So whenever you're building out an ERP, it's very accounting focused. It's very black and white, and it's procedural, and there's workflows, and everything's exact. Whenever you're working on an e-commerce system, nothing is exact. You could talk to two businesses that are using the same application, but they're going to use them in two totally different ways. You're thinking about things like user experience and design, and how the customer feels when they land on these pages. And those ERP partners, that was not the language that they spoke in. And the challenge was with that open source application, it was so flexible the customers just asked for the world, and it wasn't sustainable. So one of the first things we wanted to do, like, let's find a SaaS e-commerce application that has a strong API. We can build an integration with them, and then at least that SaaS application will have boundaries. It'll kind of keep people in those boundaries, and it won't be as crazy as the open source application. So that's when we built the relationship with BigCommerce, and we started building integrations with them. And that, I mean, it worked. That worked really well, actually.
Yes, to ERP Talks. Finally, we have you in ERP Talks podcast, and welcome to you.
Thank you so much, Khaled. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for the invitation.
So let's move to your book, Successful ERP Implementations. So the first thing, what motivates you to write this book?
Well, number one, for me, AI was new, and I wanted to test AI. And I wanted to see if it's true you could write something and modify. So I said, why do I know? Well, what the heck? I know about ERP. So I started to fool around with it. And then I came to the idea, okay, why not writing a book with it? So I created the index. That it took me a lot of time to go through the index and decide the steps. If you read the index, it's a little bit how you implement. So I decided the index. I started to write the book with a solution, modifying paragraph, modifying content, going back and forth. But what it really struck me is there are two types of customers. 90% of the customers are coming from QuickBooks, a solution that is unstructured. Most customers, they start selling and start making some money and handling inventory in an Excel sheet. And then they buy some kind of CRM to manage the customers. And they buy QuickBooks and somebody is doing the accounting. And they start growing. And it gets a point, they're managing 5, 6, 7 different solutions. And it is unstructured data. Each user of that application controls the data, but the data is not uniform across the company. Then you have the other type of customers. The customers that are coming from an old ERP like BPix or an old Sage. They already have processes. They already know what master data means. They already know what each person needs to do. And it's so much easier to work with them because they know and understand processes and they understand master data. So I'm writing the book for those that are new to ERP. Actually, most of the companies we sell in ERP, they don't even know what ERP means.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So the whole idea of, okay, you're going to do something new. How do you do it? And don't think that because you're hiring Gustavo or you're hiring Khaled, it's going to get done. No, you need to do a lot.
Exactly.
And what I wanted to convey is, yes, you need to trust your partner. Yes, the partner will work with you because we are in the same business. We want you to be successful. But at the same time, you need to put your time. You need to understand what you're doing. You need to make sure you understand your data and your processes. For example, now we're working with a spa, and they're completely new to this. And they're working really hard to understand how do we purchase. And they do internal meetings, and they're investing more time in discussing the processes internally than implementing the ERP. They will be extremely successful because they're really paying attention to all the details.
Yeah.
But we all have the customer thinking that, oh, I pay you, you do it. No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it's not like that.
We need to do it together. And I always explain, we succeed or we fail together. We work as a team. We become an extension of your company. So as an extension of your company, you need to lead the data. We will lead the process. You need to lead the data because I don't know your data. If you're giving me wrong data, I can analyze very quickly and realize that something is wrong, but I don't know the name of the streets. I don't know the chart of accounts. There's a lot of information that we don't know.
Finally, we have you, Chris. I am so happy that you joined the ERP Talks podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, so let's say I am a new customer for Third Wave, and I signed all the documents.
Yep.
Now what? What will happen? What is the journey that you will take me to, like the go live? What will happen?
Sure. So first thing we do when we do an internal kickoff, so that the sales team who spent a lot of time in discovery with our pre-sales team delivers that message back to the consulting team that's going to deliver the project, right? And then we'll sit down with sales, consulting, and the customer in the kickoff. And that kickoff is really important, because that's where we spend a lot of time on what's the risks. Like, what does success look like for this project? All right, is there that go live date set in stone? Is that a floating go live? Because a lot of times they pick a date, and then you're like, well, how important is that date? And you're like, oh, that's just a date we picked. Okay, well, we want to make sure that if there's something important and reason why there's a go live set, but you want to make sure you create the successful factors and criteria for those. Also, what's the risk? Like, hey, where could we stumble through this project? And we manage that through the project, and we set that together as a partnership, right? And then when you go in the design, it's really spending the time to make sure you understand their workflows, their as-is state, and the to-be state. Document that well. Find out if there's any gaps, because you're not going to know everything during a sales process. It's impossible, right? There are things that are going to come along the way. But as long as you keep expectations in line, and they will get out of line every once in a while. But I think good project management and a good PMO office, making sure that they're over communicating, always making sure that when we do get out of step on an expectation, that you get it back in line, because you never know what the customer's thinking. You never, ever know what they're truly thinking. They have an idea of what it looks like and what the final result and product's going to look like, but you don't know what that is. They don't really communicate that to you. So you got to make sure you're always alignment, with expectations. And then for me, I always think when you get to conference room pilot testing phase, that's the most important. Making sure that their business case scenarios are really worked through the customer, and they really spend the time to make sure that they saw a sales order go in, they saw an invoice, they saw a PO go out, and whatever their business is, right? And making sure that the result matches what they expected it to be. And they have to do that testing, and we hold their hand during that testing. But at the end of the day, the customer has got to do it. And I think if you get that right, make any adjustments, because they're going to see it. You get some training up front, but when you really see it with your data in there and you're doing your testing, you might want to shift some more stuff around, or maybe tweak a couple things. Maybe a custom field needs to be added, or how the workflow works. You want to make an adjustment. Get that right, because I think go live's not that hard. I think if you did your testing correctly, right, and then the cutover is not that bad, because you did all the hard work in conference room pilot. Where things go sideways is, and this happens many times, is the customer signs off that they did all the testing, and then you get to go live, or right before go live, and you find out they didn't do the testing, but they signed off on it.
Okay.
And that's when things get unrealistic. Everyone starts to get stressed out. You're trying to now get everything coordinated. And we've had a situation where, we had 40 workflows in a CRM project. Customer signed off, and he's testing them the day before at like 10 o'clock at night, and he's panicking, calling me on my cell phone saying, these workflows aren't working. I'm like, well, you tested them. Well, I only tested 5 out of the 40. Okay, so, and we have to go live at 8 o'clock. And we pulled an all-nighter to fix the workflows and make him go through that, and we got it done, and he stayed up all night with us, right? So we had a partnership, and we did it. This is not a third way, but we did a partnership and had to do it, right? And we got it done. But that shouldn't have happened. If the customer did what they said they were going to do, and we got confirmation, he signed off on everything, right? That's when projects can go sideways.
Yeah.
And I think once you go to post, once you're in go live, I don't think go live has to be this dramatic, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're live. I think if you've done all the testing and we've done good training, and you've done train the trainer with your team, it should be a pretty quiet day. There'll be a little bump once in a while, but it should be a pretty quiet day.
Welcome to ERP Talks podcast.
Good morning, Khaled. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure having you, and you are the first ERP customer, we can say that, to be in the show. Most of the people that come to our show are ERP owners, company owners, or vendors, or technical people, but a customer. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be great to offer my perspective from a customer standpoint.
So my next question for you, each industry have their unique challenges.
Sure.
So what are some of the unique challenges in electronic manufacturing industry?
Yeah, good question. And I think the answer to this kind of applies to a lot of industries. And I think, as you know, there's a common trend across all industries right now, the global economy as well as macro and microeconomic factors within the U.S. One major challenge is supply chain volatility, which we have seen, whether it's a global chip shortage that we saw in 2020 during COVID, or a disruption in logistics. Manufacturers are constantly adapting. So at IPS, we've addressed this by strengthening our supply relationships. So we have quarterly, semi-annual, and annual meetings with our suppliers and partners. And we've invested into tools that give us better visibility and granularity into our inventory and utilization, because that's our bread and butter, right? Having the right components to be populated onto a board and ensure that can go out in time. So we've adopted lean manufacturing principles and integrated tools like real-time inventory tracking, all linked through ERP to mitigate risks and improve efficiency. So another challenge for us is maintaining quality while scaling. So for us, quality is not negotiable. That's why we've implemented rigorous quality management systems and integrated ERP solutions that allow us to track every component in real time. So as you know, Khaled, you're an electrical engineer. You can have your 02001 resistors. They are like smaller than a fingernail.
Yeah.
How in the world can we track those without an ERP? You can't use pen and paper anymore. You can't use just a simple Excel spreadsheet. You need some automation. You need some checks and balances done automatically that maybe a human error situation could have caused, actually. So these things are really important for us. So by combining technology with a very hands-on approach, we've been able to maintain our very high standards, very personable approach, but still keep our clients happy.